Ricky, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Would you mind, should we start with a bit of your background? If you could share some of your history, where you grew up, who Ricky Davis is.
Okay, first, I think he's quite a dodgy bloke. I am a not so young, family-orientated Greek man who was born on a small Greek island called Cyprus, moved to South Africa at a very young age and developed a passion for my faith, for fashion, for food, for sports, for education, for training, and then decided to become entrepreneurial about it. And I have a huge hunger to continue to grow, not physically as I'm struggling to fit into my clothes, but definitely emotionally and professionally.
And so you came to South Africa at quite a young age, and being Greek, growing up in South Africa, what was that like? Were there any challenges with that? How do you identify in South Africa?
I think when I came to South Africa, it was probably challenging a little bit in the beginning. It was nearing the end of pre-democracy, so you were still borderline. But I was blessed that from grade 1 onwards, I was in the democratic South Africa, and things were more open. So I don't think I felt incredible challenges from coming from Cyprus to South Africa. I feel very South African. So yeah.
And Bloemfontein is the heart of South Africa, and you've chosen to stay here with the 7 affiliations you've got with 7 different organizations. Why did you choose to stay in Bloemfontein?
I think the question is, why did my mom choose to come to Bloemfontein? I've always asked her, I said, Mom, we came from a beautiful island and you decided Bloemfontein. What about Cape Town? What about Durban? But we had a support system. We had family in Bloem, and it's just where my heart is. It's where I've grown up. It's where I fell in and out of love. It's where I got smacked around. It's where I played my first sports match. I think it's what I know. In a lot of the businesses that I'm involved in, we do travel a lot. So it's not specifically just based in Bloemfontein, but as I said, I'm a very family-orientated person, and my family is based in Bloem, and my heart is where my family is.
Now I'd just like to move on to, could you tell us a bit about the different companies you're affiliated with, and which of those you own?
Okay, so all of them I have shares in, except for the ILO. I don't have shares in the ILO. The first one would probably be our Nesty Academy. Our Nesty Academy is an academic institute where we look at grades 10 to 12s and help them with their schooling. We also do homework center work and extra classes, and we do a lot of adult courses, social English, social Afrikaans, social Sesotho. And next year we're launching a university support center with, the whole Fees Must Fall campaign. A lot of university students are going online, and we want to provide that online support with the Wi-Fi, with that online element to provide that support. I think the company that I've recently acquired some shares in is the company that I'm currently most involved in, and that's JICA Communication and Training. JICA Communication and Training was started about 20 years ago, and the main focus is entrepreneurship education, teacher training, and we do a bit of publishing as well. The reason I'm so involved in that business is it provides such a platform to develop young entrepreneurs. We worked with the International Labour Organization, and we developed content that trains young entrepreneurs, and it trains unemployed youth to equip them with the skills to become entrepreneurs. I've also recently launched a fashion-orientated business called Khalida Holdings. It is all over Facebook. And yeah, basically what we've done there is we've taken streetwear and corporate clothing, and we've tried to collaborate that with the inspiration from ancient Greece. Khalida in Greek is beauty. In Latin, I think it's fiery, and from an Arabic dialect, it is immortality. And a very interesting story that I'll share a bit later, how we came up with the name. But then SKN Holdings. SKN Holdings is probably the one business that's in its real infancy stage. It's going to be an events and catering business where we host corporate events, we host artists, and hoping to get your assistance in front of so many people. I have made this request. And then the MA Eagles, that's also got an interesting history on how we came up with that name. But basically that one is focused on sports development. I have a huge passion for kids, and what we do is we provide sports training linked to the curriculum from ages 4 to 6. And then I do a lot of business consultancy, and I was contracted by the International Labour Organization, which was quite a coup for me. And my job for them was to train and mentor young startups in the Free State.
Wow, well that's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So as startups and going into an entrepreneurial venture, one thing that everyone gets told is focus, focus, focus. And you've got a little bit of everything in each of your companies. How did you manage that? Would you have a piece of advice perhaps for somebody that wanted to do a bit of everything?
I'd probably suggest don't do it. I think I've always been someone who's tried to bite off more than I can chew. I've received a lot of criticism for trying to put my hand in every pie. I think what I have had on my side, what really has assisted me, is that with the knowledge of business that I've acquired, there are certain fundamentals of entrepreneurship and of business that can be applied regardless of the business. And what I've also done is I've associated myself, and I've brought in people that are very good in these technical aspects. And what I've brought to the table is the business know-how, whereas I think the people that are with me have that technical expertise and that creativity, which does assist me. But the honest truth is, I think if it's one of my biggest weaknesses, is that there is so much of me around. There's only so little of me to give to all of the businesses is actually quite challenging.
And you say you reach to others that are, or have got the expertise, and you collaborate with them. Do you ever use some of the graduates from some of your training programs?
Yeah, actually, that is one of our biggest passions at Anesti specifically. We have a post Matric employment scheme type of thing, where the grade 12s that have graduated, we then offer them employment. I think the reason is times have changed a lot. If many years ago almost your whole path was laid out for you. You'd go to school, you'd go to university, you'd find a job. I think as the youth, and I still for some reason consider myself as the youth, we almost feel that things are expected to happen a lot quicker for us. So we have to thank Mark Zuckerberg for that, becoming a millionaire at such a young age. But we feel that we don't actually have the time to go through that process. And because even if you do become a university graduate, it's not guaranteed that you will find work. So what we try to do at Anesti is we try, as well as at GICA Communication and Training, is we try to bring in people that are busy studying and guide them and equip them and give them the expertise so that once they have finished graduating, they become more employable, or they have then equipped themselves with the skills to start their own businesses.
Okay, so employing the youth, I mean, you say that that's a passion which is very obvious in, you know, it's a component in all of your businesses. And being successful at a young age, you know, how many young people do you see going out there being successful? Have you aid in that? Is there kind of, can they come back to you and say, you know, this is what I've started up, and get some advice from you? Because you're also in the consultancy, you train them up and then you've got the consultancy side as well.
I think in terms of tracking their progress, it's something that I personally am very passionate about. I'm actually wanting to write my master's on that type of entrepreneurial development of people that have been through the system that we've got, to try to see the type of successes that they have achieved. I think that type of monitoring and evaluation is very important. We have had some great success stories. Students who have come from a very tough background with drug abuse, who are now top lawyers. You know, those are the types of things that really, you know, you can't actually put a financial value on that. I think that makes everything just worthwhile.
And now I'm going to ask you a very open-ended question.
You're welcome to ask me anything.
What sort of hardships have you faced in being an entrepreneur, and how have you dealt with them?
I think challenges are going to be there, you know, throughout your whole life. At different stages in your life, you will have financial, you know, challenges. You will have emotional challenges. I think coming to South Africa, I didn't get brought up with a silver spoon. You know, we were quite, you know, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. There was a time when my brother and my mother and I stayed in one room. And you would hear your mother crying herself to sleep because she felt she wasn't able to provide. And at that point in time, there's this chip on your shoulder of, why was I dealt this hand? Why was you know, what did I do? And I think that's one of those challenges, those moments in your life where you say, I'm either going to lie here and wallow in self-pity, or I'm actually going to make it. Professionally, I think one of my biggest challenges happened in 2014, where I was dismissed from my job. My reputation felt like it had been tarnished, and that was another stage where you have two options. You know, you can either wallow in self-pity, and you've probably earned that right because you felt you were unfairly dismissed, or you can go from good to great and show integrity and bounce back. So I think the third big challenge for me as an entrepreneur was not ever to cut corners. I think I've had many opportunities where my integrity has been put to the test, where an opportunity to expedite my development, to cut corners, to make it big very quickly with well, it was there. So for that, I have to thank my family a lot for just building in that type of integrity to say, you know what, I'm willing to live a few years of my life like most people won't, so that I can spend the rest of my life like most people can't. I think that was something that really stuck to me.
Oh, right. And what do you think, so the very strong integrity that was built from your background, you know, there's got to be a bit more though. When you're faced, it's kind of like dangling a carrot. You know, here's the quick way. In terms of keeping business relationships, and you just keep going, just say no, thank you, and carry on.
Look, I think that is always going to be a challenge. I mean, it's always going to be a challenge, and as I said, especially for younger people, those carrots are dangled. I'm not saying I have never accepted any of those carrots. I'm not saying I will never accept any of those carrots again, but I think if your business foundation is built on the right principles, you're going to get back to that same point and realize that, you know, is it really worth it? Is it worth it to achieve all of this and know that you actually haven't really achieved it? You know, there was a saying that someone told me, and they told me, Rick, when someone gives something to you, it will always be theirs. But when you make something yourself, it will be yours. And I think for me, that was something that I don't want to go down and think, you know what, I just got it all handed to me. I just took the cheap way out. I think it's more satisfying knowing that I put in the hard yards. Yeah.
And could you share some of your biggest success moments, one of those air punch moments that you had?
I think this year I had a lot of success, because I think I was at a point this year where I realized I'm almost ripe to really go in. I think, ironically, my biggest success stories have come from other people's development. I know I'm trying to make myself sound like a martyr, but the actual fact is that when you see you are imparting knowledge or skills on another person and they are excelling, I think it's something really, really huge. And I've been blessed to have the opportunity to go into very impoverished areas around South Africa, and I've had the opportunity to speak to people who literally, to get to school, they have to cross a river. So they get to the one side of the river, they have to take their clothes off, put it in a bag, cross the river, put their clothes back on, go to school, and that's their daily routine. And that has to happen. And if there's a lot of rain, you skip school. And to be able to train learners like that, and for them to leave my training course coming to me saying, Ricky, you've made me believe that there's something better out there. You know, that type of intrinsic satisfaction that you get is huge. Another aha moment was doing the fashion line. I think it was something that I've always wanted to do. You know, I've always been very into fashion. I was brought up by only women in my family. There are just women in my family. So most guys are getting brought up with cars and tires, and I'm getting brought up with fashion and period pains. So it was quite an interesting upbringing. I even had my cousin coming to me now, half an hour before we started, telling me, do you see your hair's going grey? I'll dye it for you now. She also said, why did you not pluck your eyebrows? Look at your eyebrows. So when you have that type of upbringing, you become fashion and image conscious. So it was something I always wanted to do. I just never had the guts. I met a young lady, and she kind of pushed me to that point. And it's actually her mother's birthday, and her mother is here today. So happy birthday to Ms. Mokhemisa. But yeah, I think it was those were probably some of the top aha moments, those eureka moments in my life now.
Well, I'd like to hear a bit more about being raised only by women. Would you say that there are any qualities that you were instilled in you that may have contributed to, I'd say resilience is one.
Well, I think I was brought. I think what I really gained from being brought up by, and it's not just women. They are the most powerful women I know. They are incredibly powerful. You know, they've also had to go through their own hardships, and they are all entrepreneurial. My grandmother, my two aunts, my mother, they have all started their own businesses. So you learn that type of resilience. You learn that type of love and that type of commitment. They're also very dedicated. So, you know, you learn that type of, you know, never say die attitude. You know, if they were willing to go through that, you know, if they were willing to make those sacrifices for you, it kind of builds in that willingness to push on. There were times where you wish there was a guy around to understand guy thinks. But look, I wouldn't have changed it for anything. I think I had an amazing upbringing and I was really blessed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Before I open the discussion up to the audience, have you got any words of advice that you'd like to share? Any insights into the various industries you're a part of?
I think if I could give some advice is something like this: surround yourself with very good people. Surround yourself with people who have a similar passion. I would say that remember that the elevator to success is out of order. You need to take the stairs. Remember that try to be process driven and not results driven. If you keep doing enough of the right things right, they will happen to you. If your dream doesn't scare you, then it's not big enough. And focus on the moment and focus on the process, and eventually it will come through. Just keep persevering. Thank you.
Right, so I'd like to open the discussion up if we've got any questions in the room. There we go.
Hi.
Hi.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I just have 3 point-blank questions.
All right.
First one, who are your enemies? And second one, who are your friends? Name names, please. And the third one is, do you mix business with pleasure?
Okay, can I start with the third one? The third one is, my business is my pleasure. The second one, do I have friends? I really hope so. I really do hope so. To name names, I think probably the front 3 rows here would be my friends that I know of.
Do I have enemies? I think because of my approach to life, where I'm very outspoken and I'm very in your face, I've built up quite a few enemies along the way, and I will probably continue to build up quite a few enemies along the way. But I wouldn't say that I know them by name, but I know they are out there. Okay. Have I answered your question?
Wow. Have we got another question?
Hi.
Hi, sir.
I wanted to ask regarding the way you get into new businesses. It sounds like it's very passion driven, and from your lifestyle. Have you gone into any business that isn't in line with your own kind of passions or kind of personality? And then in the businesses you're in now, do you have any exits? In other words, do you have an exit strategy, or is it indefinite?
Okay, to answer the first question, have I been involved in businesses that I was not passionate about? At the top of my head, most of the businesses that I got involved in, I have been quite passionate about. There was one when I was 11 years old. I started a little cleaning business. I went to my little brother's preschool, and I brought a group of people with, and I told the preschool teacher that I'm going to start a business here and clean your whole school, and I want to be paid a certain amount so that I can pay my staff. I then negotiated with my mother and with my aunts and my grandmother for extra playing time if I could wash the dishes and things like that. I wasn't very passionate about that specific business, but it worked at that time. Exit strategy, I don't think I ever want to exit those businesses, but I want to withdraw in the sense of being hands-on, and I want to empower people to really push through the business, because I don't think I have that intense skill of following through, and I think there are more creative people. I think the people in the row in front of you, to your left, are 2 people that I actually have got who are following through with one of the businesses. But I don't want to exit, But I do want to empower people to take it to a level that I'm probably not capable of taking it to. Sir? Hi.
What's asked based on the statement you made that your business is your passion? Do you find yourself sometimes making irrational or emotional decisions because it's something that you love? For example, you know it's a bad deal, but because you love it and you know what it means to actually do what you love, you end up doing that, taking that decision. It's not going to pay much, but because I love it.
I think I do that all the time. I think it's probably something that as I've gotten older, I've tried to wean off. But making passionate decisions in the heat of the moment, emotional decision has been something that has been quite challenging. One of my top business mentor, she's also here, Dr. Ria de Villiers. That is something that she's tried to drill into me. Always told me, let's just wait before you decide on this. Just before you do this, just let's think through it. Or even just try to take my mind off it before I do it, because I am very spontaneous and sometimes very emotional. I think that's where the Greek blood comes in. And there have been many decisions that I've taken that haven't worked out. Probably the top decision I took last year, where I lost, if we want to talk rands and cents, I lost close to about R1 million because of an emotional decision last year, where I decided to merge with someone just out of emotion. Just I thought this would work, did no due diligence, didn't think about it, I just merged, and yeah, that was, and now I'm still recovering because of that, so yeah.
Any other question?
We'll start with you and then you at the back.
I had a question regarding the technical, kind of like, how would you describe yourself in terms of as an entrepreneur, your profile? Because you talked about your passions, but nothing about like where your technical expertise really lie. And I don't want to pry, but I mean, like, how would you define? So do you think yourself as more of a finance person or a design person who's you're into all these different kinds of businesses?
Yeah. I think I'm very creative. But because of my BCom background, I have been generally very involved in the finances and the marketing side of things. So I think finances and marketing is a place where I've focused a lot on. And then in terms of following through production and things like that, I have had some really, really, really good people with me.
That's my follow-up question.
Yeah.
How do you then find the right people to leverage those skills? Like
That is always the challenge, because as Leslie said, a lot of the people I use are still in university. So, you do bump heads, and you do make a few mistakes. But I think for me, because I know I've been there, I try to look long term, and I'd rather incubate and grow with someone. So how do I choose? I think they choose me, but there are certain people, because I am involved in education and because my family is involved in education, I do have contacts in education, I do have contacts in local businesses that I've been able to build up that recommend certain people that we could use. Thank you. I think there was a question at the back there. Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for your time and story. Based on your experience working with families, how have you overcome the challenges of you being a boss and you being a son and a brother and an uncle at the same time?
That is a very interesting question. There is this fallacy. I call it a fallacy. I think that you can't work with family, and working with family or working with friends is not a good thing. I personally, I haven't had it any other way. We've been with each other for my whole life, and we'll probably continue to do that for the rest of my life. The challenges are, I think, especially in my family, is we are very, very in your face. We borderline arrogant at times. So we always think we're right, and that conflict of the family and the business, because you know that at the business you can say what you want, but you still want them to cook for you at the house, which is quite challenging. And if you, and this is not me being sexist, but women tend to remember the bad things you said about them a lot longer than men remember the bad things you said about them. So you can say something at work and you can have your lobbying support, but when you go home and it's time to cut the steak, you're not getting the nice piece. You're probably not getting a piece, and you probably have to do the dishes anyway. So I think those are some of your top challenges of actually expressing yourself, especially when working with older family members. And I do work a lot with my older family members, of having the guts to actually express without coming across as disrespectful, because in the Greek culture, your elders are very, very, very important. And respect for the woman and the matriarchs of the family is incredibly important. Plus, if you have a grandmother like I have, she will never take you seriously, and she will never think you can make a good business decision. So that is always challenging as well. Yes, sir.
I have two questions.
Okay.
We've seen Nokia and BlackBerry, they're on the top of things, but now they're nowhere to be found. And I think because of that, they got too comfortable and they didn't want to break through the market. And how do you, as an entrepreneur, make sure that you don't stay comfortable and make sure that you try and find for new ways to do business?
I think that is a very interesting question as well. Not that the previous questions weren't interesting. I think one thing is, when you've come from a really tough background, you'll always remember that. You'll always remember to not stay comfortable in what you have. You'll always want to keep pushing, and that drive to constantly push. I also surround myself with generally people younger than me, you know, and they have that hunger and that drive to constantly push. Plus, I am a very firm believer in forecasting the market. So I do a lot of research in terms of trends. I do a lot of research in terms of the economy. Shock, I absolutely love politics. I love politics with my whole heart. So I do a lot of research. I mean, you try to look at these types of trends and stay ahead. There are unfortunately some things that you cannot prepare for. You cannot prepare for a finance minister changing 3 times in a week. You cannot prepare for certain fees must fall things. I mean, but as a business, you need to try and stay ahead. I don't think I'm at a position to speak about Nokia or BlackBerry. I've never liked BlackBerry. I've got fat fingers, and those keypads were just, they were so difficult. I've always been a Nokia guy, but I don't think I'm at place to speak about them. I also don't think any of my businesses are conglomerates. So I think getting comfortable is very, very far off for me. I'm still at at that point where I want to put food on the table. So I think becoming comfortable is very far ahead for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest challenges facing young entrepreneurs and startups? What's your suggestion to people?
I think facing young startups, a big thing is funding. Funding and financing is always challenging. I think a big problem is also your inner belief that you can do it. As I said, the whole mold has been go to university, study, get a job, build it up that way. The latest statistics show that about 95% of startups or SMEs fail within the first 3 months. I also think in South Africa, because South Africa score almost lower than every other country in the world in terms of entrepreneurial attitudes. And I was at a conference and someone told me, you know, that's just unacceptable. How can we be there? And I responded with, let me give you a scenario. 51% of the country lives below the breadline. You have a situation where you have just enough money to buy a meal or to buy something to feed your family just so that they survive. When you have just that amount, are you thinking of starting a business, or are you thinking of getting the first job you can get? And I think that is one of the biggest challenges, that young startups have this fear of, if I fail now, when I could have got a job and had stability and had security, I think that does hold quite a bit back. My solution, look, there are funding agencies, whether or not they are as easy to get a hold of and is debatable. Right now, for young people looking for funding, I would suggest the NYDA. They are probably the hot funders going around right now. It used to be CEDA. I'm sorry if there are CEDA people. Yeah, I still think you guys are good. But I think right now there's a big push by the NYDA. What I would say is mentorship. I think link up with someone who is very, very experienced. I think link up with someone. Don't take it like the Bible, someone who's very experienced, but have that type of support. And then I would say close your eyes and go for it. I think that is the only way. When you hear about the 6 businesses that I've got, everyone's like, wow, that's impressive. What you don't hear is about the 5,000 that I failed with. And I think that is the scary thing. You know, people are talking now about, wow, look at your fashion line, and look at, you know, people aren't talking about the days where I was wearing PD shorts and rugby socks. People are talking about, you know, this cuisine of food, you know, not the times where I was trying to sell 2-minute noodles. I think you come from that place where you've failed quite a few times. So don't be afraid of failure. I think and I'll repeat the quote that I live my life by, is as an entrepreneur, you need to be willing to live a few years of your life like most people are not willing to live, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people probably can't live one day. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Just on that mentorship, you've got various businesses in different ways. Do you like have a mentor for each business that you have? Or is one mentor for
I think growing up, I had one business mentor, and I think she can raise her hand. She is here. So that was the one business mentor. I think I had a mentor in terms of, you know, in terms of just that perseverance for my whole life, and she's sitting to her right. But in terms of specific businesses, I wouldn't say I have a mentor for each business. But what I do often look towards is experts in that field, and look for consultants that I can speak to that have been in that field, especially if it's an uncharted field, like the fashion. You know, the only bit of fashion I know was what the woman in my family taught me. So to then try to bring up a new brand, and you know, initially when I saw the logo, there was a capital C and a capital K, and I was like petrified. Calvin Klein's going to sue me before I even make it. So I told him, just add an H, please, because I don't want to go down before I go up. So I think you do associate yourself with certain consultants and experts, but I wouldn't say I have a mentor for each and every business, no.
We'll take one more question.
Yes, sir.
You said that in 2014 you suffered a big failure, and yet you went from good to excellent because you were sacked from your job. But most people that I experience, they don't, they just collapse. So what is your way of dealing with this and of going up rather than going down? And the second question is, they also said that some time ago you lost quite a lot of money. and then you are still recovering from this. So how do you do this? Because all of us, as we are sitting here, probably made a mistake that was like very, very dire in our lives. And I found in my life that sometimes I can deal with this quickly, and sometimes it just drags in my mind that I cannot cope with this. So what is your way to cope so that it doesn't drag us down?
Thank you for your question. To answer the first question of when I got sacked, I think that was very difficult. It was the first time since probably I played semi-professional soccer and got sacked to the bench that I got kicked out of something. That was very difficult. It was very difficult because to this day I didn't feel I was wrong. So that was very challenging. The losing a lot of money was very challenging because it was completely my fault. It was completely my fault. I'm the one who messed up. So that one I think I've probably, the reason I say I'm still recovering is because, as you said, you still go back to it and you're like, what were you thinking? Why were you like, you weren't thinking, obviously. So you like, but so that one is probably the most challenging. I think to be dead honest with you, my faith has helped a heck of a lot. I think to have that faith, to have that spirituality that knows that there is something bigger, that you are forgiven for the mistakes you make, I think helps a lot. I think what I do have, and I'm blessed beyond measure, is I have a support system that is top drawer. I have a family that thinks I am made of gold dust. I have a grandmother that considers me on the same level as her icons in her room. I have so much support that it's very difficult to stay down because they won't allow you. They are so strong that they won't allow you. So that helped. I'm also incredibly stubborn. I'm very, very stubborn, and I hate failing and I hate losing at everything. I think I was speaking to the gentleman. He was reffing one of the games that I was playing, and he sent me off. He sent me off because I was playing against one guy and I threw him on the floor. I was playing soccer, by the way, and I threw him on the floor and I fell on his ribs with my knee. And he told me, look, I think I have to send you off. And I started swearing at him. I told him, why? What did I do? And that's because we were losing. I mean, I just hate losing with an absolute passion. And when I lost in 2014, I just had this motivation to say, oh, I just won't lose again. And then I lost even more in 2015. And now I have an even bigger motivation to not lose again. So far 2016 is going well. I only got 3 weeks left. Yeah.
Right, well, thank you very
Thanks very
much.
much, Lucy.